Welcome to episode number 32 of Life Without Cravings. You may have heard that an addiction is a disease and that you can learn to manage it, but you can't cure it. And I want to call BS on that. And I'm going to tell you why in this episode. Now, first of all, I thought, where can I find the most accurate information about what the general opinion about addiction is? And you might be familiar with something called ChatGPT. Everyone is talking about it, and as I understand it, it's an open source artificial intelligence chatbot type of thing. It compiles data from the internet, and you can ask it pretty much anything and it will come up with an answer based on what it can source from the internet. So I thought, who better to ask than this artificial intelligence chatbot? So I asked it two questions. First, I asked it how addiction works, and the second question I asked is, can you cure addiction? So this is going to be maybe a little bit lengthy, but I'm going to read it to you because I think it's important that you get the whole context of all of this. So the first question, the answer that I got to that one is that addiction is a complex condition characterized by compulsive drug or alcohol use despite harmful consequences. Addiction is a chronic disease that affects the brain's reward, motivation, and memory systems, making it difficult for people to quit using drugs or alcohol even when they want to. Does it sound familiar? The development of addiction involves several factors, including genetics, environmental influences, and individual vulnerability. I actually did another search here. I asked it the same thing about food addiction because I just wanted to check. And it started by telling me that the term food addiction is used to describe a pattern of compulsive overeating. And then it went on to describe the whole same process that I'm going to read to you now, for general addictions. So it's, in my opinion, a bit ridiculous that people don't buy into food addiction, excuse me, as being a real addiction when the same thing happens in the brain when we are addicted to food as it does when we're addicted to alcohol or other drugs. There's no difference. And still, a lot of people say that food addiction is not a thing. Right? If we call alcohol addiction an addiction, and if we call gambling addiction an addiction, and cocaine addiction, or whatever you want to pick, if that is an addiction, food can be an addiction as well. I just want to point that out. Sorry for the disturbance. I'm going to continue. When a person uses drugs or alcohol, it activates the brain's reward system, releasing large amounts of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. Over time, repeated drug or alcohol use leads to changes in the brain's reward system, making it less sensitive to natural rewards and more dependent on the drug or alcohol to feel pleasure. Right? This sounds very familiar. I think most of you have heard about this and in some sort of way, but maybe not always talked about in this way when it comes to food. There's one more part here. And this is where I think it gets quite interesting. So it told me, as addiction progresses, the brain's prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and self-control, becomes impaired, making it difficult for people to make rational choices and resist the urge to use drugs or alcohol. This can lead to a cycle of compulsive drug-seeking behavior, withdrawal symptoms, and relapse. And this last part is where researchers and addiction professionals are making false assumptions based on outdated science, in my opinion. When I asked the ChatGPT whether addictions can be cured, and I'm just going to give you a short summary now, it said addiction is generally considered a chronic condition, which means that it cannot be cured in the traditional sense. However, it can be managed through effective treatment and ongoing support, allowing individuals to live healthy, fulfilling lives in recovery. I don't know about you, but to me this sounds awful. And something that hit me was this whole sentence felt so standardized. If we replace the word addiction with type 2 diabetes, I bet no one would notice, because it's the information that we're given about everything. That you are not in control. You have no control of this. It's a disease that is progressive, that's just going to continue. I just want to play with it. I'm going to insert it. If I read the same sentence again with type 2 diabetes, type 2 diabetes is generally considered a chronic condition, which means that it cannot be cured in the traditional sense. However, it can be managed through effective treatment and ongoing support, allowing individuals to live healthy, fulfilling lives. In recovery, that might give it away a little bit because it's the wrong word to use for type 2 diabetes. But other than that, it's the standard sentence we're being told about all conditions. And if you are here, I bet you that you are someone who's very interested in your own health. You've done your research and you know that a lot of health conditions that we have been told cannot be cured can be cured. So this is ridiculous. Most of you watching this, you know that type 2 diabetes is 100% reversible, and so are addictions. And I'm going to show you why I believe that so firmly. And I'm proof of that. I'm not the only proof that I know of that this works. I'm not getting any treatment for my sugar addiction. I don't get any external support for it. I'm staying away from sugar because I have retrained my brain and changed the actual neural pathways in my brain so that I no longer crave sugar. That's what I have done. I don't need support groups. I don't need to be in some home. I don't need people to dote on me. I'm perfectly capable of doing this myself because I have spent the time and effort to retrain my brain, and you can do that as well. Anyone can do that. You can retrain your brain to anything that you want to retrain it to, not just when it comes to addictions. But that's what I'm talking about. Today I can eat sugar if I want to without relapsing. Not going to happen. I am 100% convinced that I can eat sugar without having lots of cravings and feeling like, oh my god, my world's going under and I need to go on a binge. Not happening. I am not scared of sugar anymore. What I'm not saying is that I can go on a sugar binge for a week and be okay. I haven't tried it, and I have no intention of trying it. That would probably be a big mistake. But I'm not scared of sugar because I don't believe that I'm ever going to end up in a week-long binge by having sugar one time. I think that I can go and have sugar today and I will be perfectly fine. Because the sugar is not controlling me anymore. I control me and I know how to control my brain. I can choose what I want to do. And that is something that I have very purposefully trained myself to do. And you get to choose what you want to train your brain to do. Some people want to train their brains to be 100% abstinent. Other people want to be moderators. And you can train your brain to do either of those. It's completely up to you. If you're skeptic about this, go and Google the term neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity just refers to the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout your life. It doesn't stop adapting at age 20 or whatever you were told when you went to school. If you're my age or older, you will definitely have been told that. Our brains are able to heal, and they're able to grow, and they can prune away neural pathways that we don't need anymore, right? And if you don't understand what I'm saying, since most of you here, you're very into your health thing, compare that to how the body's going through autophagy when you're fasting, for example. And if you don't know what that is, I'll just explain that very quickly. It's just your body breaking down old, damaged, malfunctioning cells and organelles, and it gets rid of all the stuff that we don't use because it needs the protein for better processes, and the body doesn't like wasting energy on things that we have no use for. So if we then take that knowledge and we go back to the brain, the pruning of unusual neural pathways makes sense. Because if you're not using a specific neural pathway, why would we keep putting energy into keeping that alive? We don't. So when you don't feed the addiction pathway in your brain, what's going to happen is that those neural pathways are going to start getting pruned away, which means that over time, even if you do have cravings, they're not going to be as strong, and they're not going to feel as compulsive, and they're probably not going to last as long. They're just going to be like a faint memory of what your cravings used to be like, and they're going to be completely manageable. That's how it works. However, the basis of the neural pathway, like the base, will not go away completely. It's like, you want to compare that with, the motorway, and you have lots of takeoffs, and then no one is using those takeoffs. The motorway is still going to be there in case someone needs to go there, but we don't have all the takeoffs because we have pruned them away because no one was using them. So we didn't want to spend money to maintain them, right? So that's going to, like, the basis of it's going to be there. So if I was to spend a week binging on sugar, I would probably start creating new neural pathway or new connections to this old neural pathway, and my cravings would get stronger and they would quickly come back again. So it's not like it's foolproof. You can't say that I cured my addiction and then I started consuming that food again and, oh no, I wasn't cured because it came back. It's not about that. It's about how you are training your brain. And I'm going to mention what I think about curing, etc. in the end, because I have very specific opinions about that. Anyhow, luckily I have no desire to go back and try a week binging on sugar. I don't even want sugar now. I decided on my birthday that I'm going to go out, I'm going to have a meal, and I'm going to have whatever is on the menu that I want to have. I looked at the dessert list and I was like, nope, 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 nope. Nothing seemed nice to me. I didn't want it. And it was not because I was scared of it. It was because I genuinely didn't want it and I didn't think that I would enjoy it. So this is basically what traditional addiction treatment, this is where they stop thinking. This is where it ends. Like, they think that by putting you into rehab, they probably know that you can prune away some of these connections, and then they say that you need to be abstinent because as soon as you start consuming or using that drug of choice again, you're going to obviously start building these connections again. But I don't see why we would stop here. So what I'm doing with all my clients is that we just take this one step further. The pruning of the neural pathway is just a bonus that makes it a lot easier for us long term, because it gets rid of those cravings. The cravings are going to be very mild, and they're going to be more like thoughts. They're not going to feel compulsory. That's what that does. So it just helps us long term. What we're doing, or what I'm doing with my people, is that it's not dependent on you avoiding any triggers. It's not depending on you putting yourself in any specific situation or locking yourself into a room for 3 months when we're working together or whatever. It's not even dependent on you avoiding the foods that you're addicted to. Although in the beginning I do recommend that you probably do that, because it's going to be very hard for you to do it if you keep using the food throughout your training period. But it's entirely doable. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Just not useful when you try to develop a new neural pathway. So what we really work on is that we work on interfering in this old neural pathway at the point between where you feel the craving, and then you go and react to the craving and eat the food that you crave. We are interfering right in between. It's like we're cutting it off, we're rerouting, and we go another way in the brain. So when we do that, if we interfere that, having the craving is no longer a problem, because every time you have a craving, you go down that pathway And instead of reacting to it, you take the other way that we have built, and you don't go and eat that thing. So we're just rerouting this old neural pathway. And I think this is the most efficient way of doing it. So having cravings is not a problem. It's never going to be a problem. And I think this is what they are missing when they say that you can't cure addictions. They think that you need to get rid of the whole old neural pathway, but you can't get rid of it entirely because it's part of our biology. We are built to function this way because this is how we want food. This is how we go and seek food for survival. If we don't have any appetite, we're gonna die. So we need to have some sort of cravings, and the cravings can be different, obviously, for different foods, and they are exaggerated when it comes to an addiction. They're just way over the top because we have been abusing the system. But we don't want to get rid of it. We don't even want to get rid of it. We just want to reroute it. So you just need to change the response to that neural pathway. When it's activated, we have a different response. And we can rewire our brains and the neural pathway into anything that we want. The most useful rewiring, though, for us to have is to just have the craving and respond by not eating and doing nothing. Like we don't need to add things that we need to do because that can be a bit disruptive. The most useful thing to do is nothing, because then you can reroute it and keep going on with your day, do the things that you feel are important in your life. And we don't have to go and run around the block or stand on our head or do 50 push-ups or whatever people are trying to just distract themselves from having the craving. Then you always have to do that. It's not very useful. And the tool that I'm using with my clients to enable them to do this and stay sane at the same time, because let's face it, it's not fun to be addicted to food. It can feel a bit desperate sometimes, and it's very uncomfortable when you start doing the work. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to be easy the first week you're doing it necessarily, but for every time you do it, it's going to be easier. So the main tool that we're using, and which I think is very critical for long-term success, is the ability for them to allow themselves to feel negative emotions. And when they learn to be okay with having negative emotions, the compulsion to use food as an escape just goes away. Because that's what we do a lot of the time. Stress eating. Oh, someone said something. I'm upset. I need to eat something. I feel like I've been working so hard today. I need a reward and I'm all, worn out. It's all these negative emotions and we eat as a response to them. We don't have to do that anymore. We can just feel the negative emotions and actually stay focused on doing the things that we want to do in life. We don't have to go and hide behind the food. So yes, you can cure sugar addiction. And as I said, I don't like using the word cure because I don't think addiction is a disease. I don't think it's something that needs to be cured. In my opinion, an addiction is a symptom of a coping mechanism that has been made available to us with processed foods or other unnatural substances. And it's a symptom of less than ideal mental health in our society. If everyone was just happy, I don't think we would have this problem. But that's not the case. We're not living lives that we were meant to live. So we're very unhappy. And food is very easily accessible to most people, and it's legal. So someone who might be prone to be addicted to drugs, illegal drugs, they might just choose food instead because they don't want to get caught. And they don't want to do illegal stuff, so they never even try these things. But if they were available, maybe that would be what they were doing. And so many people who are not addicted to food, they might be addicted to other things. Watching YouTube, Netflix, porn, whatever. There's so many things that we can be addicted to. And all it does is just it allows us to escape the negative emotions that we have. And so what I want to say is that anyone who has a human brain, because human brains are a bit more evolved than animal brains, if you have a human brain, you probably do if you're watching this and understand what I'm saying, you are capable of retraining your brain, right? You're capable of doing that regardless of your age or how long you have been addicted to these foods. It does not matter. Neuroplasticity means that you can retrain your brain at any age. It's a lifelong thing that you have. Your body and your brain keeps regenerating and building up processes that are most efficient for you. It will keep reshaping and adapting to whatever you are doing. So when you start doing this and allowing yourself to feel negative emotions and building this new neural pathway and to react and do nothing, you can do that even if you're 95 years old. It's possible. I don't want you to give up on yourself if you feel like, well, I'm probably too old, I've been doing this for too long. You can do it. Everyone can do it. All you need is wanting to do it. If you're dedicated, if you want to do it, if you're committed to doing it, you can do it. Okay? So this is the beauty of the thing. It's like when you start building these new neural pathways, each time you use them, it's a little bit easier to do the next time because now you walk down that path once. So the next time is going to be a little bit easier. And over time, it just becomes a new habit for you and you don't even have to focus on it anymore. It's going to be a new habit that you do without having to think about it. I don't even think about sugar anymore. Not very often. I mean, sometimes my brain will tell me something, but I never think about it and feel overwhelmed by it. It's just a fleeting thought. It's something that passes by. I think, oh, that's interesting, and then it's gone. I don't have this compulsion to actually go and eat sugar or find out where I can get it or check if I should put it in my online shopping basket or whatever. Never. And it's just not me. When I get new clients, they're almost always very tense. It's probably a good word to use. They're often very scared of these foods that they are addicted to because they think that they are causing binges and they don't trust themselves. And a lot of the time they want to be abstinent 100% of the time. And there's so much pressure around it, which makes it so hard to do because we don't like pressure. We don't like feeling forced to stay away from food 100% of the time or specific foods 100% of the time because the brain will have fear of missing out and it will create a panic reaction and then that can lead to a binge. But after they practice for a few weeks, it just usually clicks. It's like we don't even know when it's going to happen. Sometimes we don't even see any progress for 2 weeks and then boom, it just happens. And then they start believing that they can actually do this. And some of my clients, they even open up to the possibility of having some carbs on special occasions like birthdays and special holidays. And then we get to retrain their brains to see that this is not an opportunity to binge. This is just what we want to do for whatever reason they have for why they want to do it. It might be a religious reason. It might be just like a tradition that they want to keep, or it might be something else. But we'd retrain the brain to not see it as a binge opportunity anymore. And then they can go to these events and they can enjoy themselves and know that they are in control. And this all brain retraining. There's nothing magic about it. It's just doing the work. It's like going to the gym, but it's for the brain. You can retrain your brain to do whatever you want it to do for you. That's pretty cool to think about, by the way. So if you want to be an abstainer, you can do that. If you want to be a moderator, you can do that too. It's up to you. There are no musts because you can choose how you want your brain to react in any situation. It's always up to you. When you join my group or you work with me one-on-one, you will get all the tools that you need and then you get to practice and follow a plan so that you will get the exact results that you want. If you think about it, like what are the results that I want? What would my ideal life look like if I could stop this compulsive eating? If I had control, what would I choose it to look like? And then you can work from there and retrain your brain to do exactly that. It's all easily customizable to what you want to achieve. I don't do a cookie cutter approach. I don't believe in that. I believe in individuality. I believe in choice. I believe in freedom. I want all of my clients to be free to live the life that they want on their terms without restrictions. And I want you to do that as well. Think bigger. Don't think small and do things and think that you need to do things a specific way, because otherwise you're going to end up binging or it's not going to work for you or whatever. You can retrain your brain to do anything. You get to choose. We have had enough restrictions in our lives. Let's just rebuild our brains to do what we want them to do in the way that we want them to do. That's all I wanted to share with you this week. I'll see you again next week. Bye.